President Barajaglia has pardoned the second treason accused Philip Bino more than a year after he freed Mark Benschop.
Agriculture Minister Robert Prasad says corrective action will be taken at all levels to rectify the shortfall in production at the East Demerara Sugar Estates.
And the body of Stanislaus Gomes, also known as Santa, whose drug addict son chopped him to death over $200, was today laid to rest at the Soesdijk Cemetery.
The details of these and other stories, business news, and of course the latest sporting action into Diamond Mineral Water and NCN Sport News after these. Good evening, I'm Natasha Smith.
And I'm Paul Moore.
With this edition of the 6 o'clock news for today, Tuesday, December 2, 2008. Here's what's happening. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Natasha. President Barajaglia has granted a free pardon to the second treason accused, Philip Bino, over a year after he freed Mark Benschop. The president made the announcement yesterday after he said Bino had expressed his remorse on several occasions by way of letter since 2007. Edward Lane reports.
The Office of the President last evening released a statement in which President Barajaglia announced that he has pardoned treason accused Philip Bino. On July 3, 2003, Bino reportedly provided leadership to a group of several other persons who stormed the office of the president in a violent protest march which resulted in the death of 2 people. Following the incident, the former leader of the People's Solidarity Movement went into hiding and has been writing to the president expressing remorse while appealing for clemency. He was charged in absentia while his co-accused, Mark Benschop, who turned himself into authorities, received a presidential pardon last year while awaiting a retrial. A statement released by OP last evening said that acting in accordance with the powers granted to him under Article 188 of the Constitution, President Jagdeo granted a free pardon to Mr. Philip Bino. In his appeals, the statement said Mr. Bino informed the president about his remorse over the incident, the invasion of the presidential secretariat, and the destruction of public property. He also recognized that the event was an attack on a democratic institution of the state and not directed at the president. Bino, who was a member of the YSM, a youth arm of the People's National Congress, also held the rank of lieutenant in the then Guyana National Service, where he was a training officer. He was also a candidate for the PNC in 2001 elections and served as a member of parliament in 2002, campaigned countrywide, calling for protests against the PPPC government. His campaign led to a massive march on July 3, 2002, which culminated in front of the office of the president, leading to the death of 2 persons and injured to several others as presidential guards opened fire on the intruders. Last August, President Barajaglia had granted a pardon to Benschop, who had been in prison while awaiting retrial after the first ended in a hung jury. Benschop had also written to President Jagdeo, who said he felt the former talk show host had learned his lessons. The president described the decision to free Benschop unconditionally as a personal one, admitting that he still believed that both men were involved in the invasion of OP. Edward Lane, the 6 o'clock news.
Agriculture Minister Robert Prasad says corrective action will be taken at all levels to rectify the shortfall in production at the East Demerara Sugar Estates. He made this remark during the submission of a report by the Commission of Inquiry, which was established to look into the matter. Shardalal has more.
Over the past few years, concerns were raised about the decline in sugar productivity on the East Demerara estates. However, it took a visit from Agriculture Minister Robert Prasad to bring the issue to the forefront. And after almost 2 months, the specially appointed Commission of Inquiry has submitted its report to the Minister for review. He says these findings and proposals will be considered when plotting a way forward for the industry.
At this stage, I don't want to comment much because I have not read the report. I've just received a copy of it. But just to say that there are serious issues within Gaisuku, and perhaps what we see the east coast of Demerara, the situation being allowed to deteriorate over the last 5 years is symptomatic perhaps of what is taking place across the industry.
Minister Prasad has also expressed concern about the flow of capital investment in the company, which is projected to end the year with a deficit of more than $3 billion.
This year certainly will be a very, very tough year for Gaisuku. And what we see this year is the accumulation of neglect and also other factors too, which we cannot discount, such as weather and also the inability of the new factory at Skeldon to come on stream very early. There are other factors which are outside of the control of management. But certainly what we have seen that there are weaknesses in the management of the company at different levels.
In light of management problems, stakeholders have been working to revamp the organizational structure of GAISUCO. Minister Prasad notes that the new format will take effect from January 1 and adds that the possibilities for the position of Deputy CEO are being examined. Meanwhile, Inquiry Commission Chairman Vic Udit believes that both GAISUCO and the Agricultural Workers Union need to stop playing the blame game and be accountable. Mr. Udit believes that the current situation may have been avoided had management intervened at the inception.
We will be very happy to get the comments of the management, top management and the members, because we feel that every statement that has been put in that document is defensible. In fact, this is why we have 3 volumes. We try to do as thorough a job as possible because we expect that people will try to shoot holes in our report. So we try to preempt that.
Among the proposals disclosed in the document are the need for proper infrastructure, greater management presence in the fields, and staff training. Reporting for the 6 o'clock news, I'm Shardalal.
Tourism and transportation, along with agriculture and climate change, are key areas being looked at as the region prepares to negotiate a CARICOM-Canada trade agreement. CARICOM's Assistant Secretary General, Dr. Edward Green, says specialized subcommittees have already begun work for the negotiations, which is slated to begin in February of next year. CARICOM heads of government at their 19th intersessional meeting of the conference agreed to place priority on the negotiations with Canada for a trade and development agreement. To this end, CARICOM's Secretary General was mandated to inform the Canadian government of the region's readiness to commence negotiations. According to CARICOM's Assistant Secretary General, Dr. Edward Green, preparatory work has begun. He stresses a key focus is on the economic component of development.
Committees dealing with trade generally, others dealing with agriculture, and there's a committee dealing with sustainable development, including climate change, which you know is a very important aspect. And then there's another committee dealing with human resource development, because many of the negotiating points with Canada now would have to deal with the economic components of development.
At a recently held private sector forum held in Trinidad, the region's private sector posited development assistance and some other issues they believe must be in the agreement.
It has to do with developmental assistance. This Canadian agreement is going to differ a lot from the EPA in that Canada has vouched and has made it a priority to make available development assistance to CARICOM. Being immigration and visa, free movement of people. Most of these agreements we have in the past, we've seen a separation between free movement and people and get into the countries, especially persons from CARICOM and this region trying to get to the EU and in this case to Canada. Some sort of development assistance should be forthcoming, maybe from the Canadians to the CARICOM region so that we can meet those phytosanitary requirements.
Dr. Green added the region is also looking at tourism and transportation, which is important to the region's growth plans.
Our transportation system in the Caribbean is woefully out of date, and I think it could in fact militate against any development thrust that we have. So in fact I think the negotiations and the plans that we are putting in place in the regional consultations would help us to move forward.
According to Dr. Green, negotiations are slated to begin in February of next year. The broad outline of the agreement is projected to include market access, rules of origin, trade facilitation, investment, and trade in services.